Welcome back to Ink and Ecstasy. This week we're reviewing a story called Yearning to Blow by LylaVyolet. This is a submission story that I had read before and gave to Liz to review. Liz?
All right. This was a story about a guy who has two female roommates, and he is under a very strict deadline to get a piece of work done, which is writing an article. And he has, from I think what I remember, he has until like midnight to get it done. And he was supposed to have another 2 days. But while this is going on, while he is trying to, stress write this article, one of his roommates comes home and is in a miserable state because her boyfriend has dumped her, and that leaves her uh, rather disappointed because she had plans for the weekend, or for the visit her boyfriend was supposed to be making soon. I guess it had been a few weeks since they had last seen each other, and she was really, really looking forward to it. Uh, so when those plans fall apart, she gets home, she tells the roommate, after he asks because she looks a little sad, she tells the roommate that her boyfriend just dumped her and she's kind of miserable and she was really looking forward to some stuff. And they talk a little bit while he's trying to write this article.
Some stuff. She's
Some
looking forward to some
stuff.
stuff. Okay.
I mean, in the end, yeah. Um, um, but yeah, it slowly progresses from there, and ultimately, her goal is she really has been looking forward to the idea of giving someone a blowjob, or giving her boyfriend a blowjob, but he is no longer in the picture, and now she is without. And her male roommate just happens to be there at the right time and is stressed out enough that she could probably manipulate him into, going along with it. And that is the summary.
I think it's worth mentioning that blowing guys is something that she does for her male friends and she likes it.
Yes, I was going to get to that a little later. But yeah, I was going to bring that up next, actually. Not just that, but the desire to be submissive. That is a strong desire and very relatable. um, it is it is something that can absolutely wreck your day if you don't get to have that kind of outlet, especially if you're working in like a high stress situation, which it sounded like she was, and that was kind of her stress relief. And I think that is true for a lot of both men and women who are submissive. They often have very high stress jobs to some degree, and they just want to come home and relax and just, you know, melt into somebody else's orders or directions, if you will. Um, but yeah, like that was so well portrayed in this, and for one thing, I absolutely loved the story. It is definitely going on the favorites.
All right.
So the way this was done was, I don't know, I think it was kind of masterfully done, to be honest. There were a few typos, but like I 100% overlooked those. I don't care because the characters were so well done, particularly Zoe and her desire to be submissive. That mentality was portrayed in such a good way, especially for someone who admits that they have a job where they have to be very in control of things and they don't particularly like that aspect of their job. So, yeah, that shows through in her submission, which I think was some of that maybe not a lot of people would pick up on necessarily, because it comes across as just her being manipulative and bratty, but there is very much personality behind that. So initially, I was kind of rolling my eyes when I started reading this. I thought, it was going to be this stupid, like, bimbofication story that, gave no thought to the characters really and just played it out as a full stroker. I was ready to dismiss it initially. But I read it, and as I read, I realized that, for one thing, this writer is really good. The subtlety she put into, or I think she, Lila, right? I'm going to say they. The subtleties they put into the characters kept me reading. Like, to the title never would have caught my attention. It would have just, again, part of why I rolled my eyes was the title and the
Really?
tagline. Yeah.
That was what caught my attention.
The title and tagline made me roll my eyes. Yearning to blow. Zoe wants to suck a cock and she's alone with her roommate.
I
Like,
yo,
that's why I thought it was
okay.
just going to be a generic stroker.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I haven't been, going around to the same, corners of the internet as you have, but I haven't seen really anything like that
That title?
anywhere. No, I haven't seen anything like this story.
Oh, no, I was saying I was just writing it off because of the title and the tagline. Like, I went
Oh,
into it initially
so
writing it off because of the title and tagline before I read
okay.
anything about the story.
So you were thinking it was just going to be a mindless stroker, like maybe
Yeah,
from, maybe like completely, well, maybe not from the guy's point of view, uh, so to speak, but just leaving out the the girl's personality or whatever.
right. I thought it was going to be like,
Okay.
very generic.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what really caught my attention was the word yearning. Okay.
Yearning.
Yeah. So to me, that that bespoke to her desire, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of had a hunch that there was going to be a psychological, component to it, and there was.
Um, yeah, I can see that. To me, that particular phrase is actually in the part of lyrics to a song I really like. So that's what I, connected it to.
Is that a KMFDM song?
No, it
Oh no, no,
is.
that is what's the name of that? Ready to Blow. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
this is just a line in a song, and I just looked it up to see if I could find it, but I don't know. I'll have to look it up later because I know who it's by. I just can't remember exactly which song it is. But it's, part of that song, and it's honestly my favorite line in the song. So that's what I connected it with. And I was still ready to write it off because it was just like, yeah, yeah, it's a play on wanting to give a blowjob or receiving one. Got it. But yeah, I was ready to write it off. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't skim it. I'm glad I read it all the way through because because the female character in this was not someone who was written as necessarily just a sex object, because she has a her personality shines through in this. And
Right.
which, the funny thing is part of it is she is very much written to the male gaze, but she's also not. So it's this nice little balancing act that I really appreciated.
Yeah, like after he had started writing, and then she was just kind of like walking around and just, leaning against the wall and just kind of sighing and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. You know,
That
yeah,
that
like
is what I
all that
yeah.
stuff really popped.
Yeah, that is what I meant about her having that controlling personality at work and still yearning for submission, being submissive. That all of that little stuff was to get attention and to draw attention without outright saying, "Hey, fucking look at me, okay?" You know? It was
Yeah,
her way of, trying to draw attention without drawing attention. And that
right,
was really, really well done.
right.
And but I know a lot of people would read into that and look at it and say, she's being manipulative and playing mind games with him. But I didn't see it that way. I saw that as she wants to be in control of the situation, but she also doesn't. She wants to draw his attention to her, but she doesn't want to come right out and say exactly why. She wants him to get it from inferences, and when he doesn't, she's a little annoyed with him.
She wants him to get it from inferences. Like, what are you talking about?
Like she when she starts talking about what she does with her friends, she's wanting him to be like, "Well, you could blow me," you know, and he doesn't do that. He just kind of like, "Oh, yeah, okay," and goes back to writing. And she's like, "What the fuck?" So yeah, that's when she kind of amps it up at that point, and she just comes out and be like, "Look,
Huh.
look,
Yeah,
I want this to happen, okay?"
yeah. So, I mean, so like, how did you not see that she was, just? I mean, I don't want to say manipulating him really, but that is kind of what she was doing, in my opinion. And I mean, even Jake, the character in the story, he saw it that way. And there's one particular passage that stood out to me when he was thinking about her quote unquote submission. And he says, what was it? Uh, she had wanted submission and she had managed to guide me into dominating her. My
Yes.
outsider perspective on BDSM was broadened with this incredible revelation that submissives are just as powerful as the dominants they kneel before, if not more.
Right. That's what I meant about her having a very um dominant type controlling day job, like where she has to be in control, but she wants to be submissive. So it's a balancing act for her in that she's trying to guide him without outright telling him what she wants, which is manipulative in a way, but it's also just her using her personality to play into both roles. Like I said, she's wanting him to
Well,
pick up on what she's wanting him to do. Like she doesn't know that he's not into being dominant at that point, you know? So she's thinking if I just throw this out there very, casually, he might be like, you know, he might go along with it and offer. And then I get my way and without having to do all these, jumping through hoops things.
jumping through hoops to get him to let me suck his dick.
Right. Because she doesn't want to come right out and say it because that would be her being in
Yeah,
control. And she doesn't want that. She wants
yeah,
him to want her to,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So there was this weird kind of like, well, yeah. I mean, I guess she's like not really manipulating him because she just needs it that bad. But then, well, I don't know. Is she really like? I guess maybe she is, but she just doesn't. She just can't help it. I mean, it's kind of like when you like someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you act differently around them. It's like not really anything that you can really control,
Right.
because like your inner desires are going to show through at least a little bit, you know?
Right. And sometimes that can look like
And
being cagey or even manipulative in that way, too.
so she was manipulative, but I don't think that was necessarily her intent, because by the end she's begging him to let her suck his dick.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
so
she wasn't
if
being manipulative to manipulate him. She was being manipulative to try to get him to ask her to do what she wanted to do to him.
or to like tell her
Yeah, tell
what
he
she,
wanted right.
yeah,
Tell her she could do this, or he would like this,
tell her that she could do it,
or should
like,
maybe.
or should. I like that idea though, like, if you want to suck my dick, I'll let you.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been enough. Like, that's
That's
not the term she wanted.
yeah,
Like, shit, that would have
yeah,
probably like irritated her, to be honest.
yeah.
Because it wasn't that she wanted him
I
to
know it
allow it.
is an interesting idea though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't that she wanted him to allow it. She wanted him to want it.
yeah,
That's the whole crux of it. She was manipulating him into wanting her to suck his dick.
but
Like,
her problem was that it was just a really bad time, right?
yeah, he was very
And then
distracted.
so he never, in fact, wanted it.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
was very
well,
distracted.
he so he did want it. He just didn't want it then,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
That
But I guess it
deadline added
probably,
tension.
yeah, and that probably like turned her on more. Like, well, wait a minute, I'm not getting his attention at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then so she really had to like up her game, probably,
Yeah,
because
that
she
is
like,
why the moaning started happening more aggressively.
yeah,
She was like, "You're not gonna not pay attention to me. I'm gonna make it so you cannot not you cannot just ignore me, you know."
right,
And yeah, I like that because again, that is that in control personality coming through the submissive side, and that she is a woman on a mission and she's gonna get to the end of that fucking mission whether he wants to or not. And sometimes, I mean, that is just how you have to do it. So,
yeah. So obviously, I love this story, or I wouldn't have given it to you to read, right?
mhm.
But there were a few things that I didn't care for, like the spelling and grammar.
Yeah,
It
that could have used some
really
work.
could have used some work.
Like I said, I
There
didn't
were words.
care.
There were words that were clearly left over from rewriting the sentence,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's not enough to make me dislike the story, but it is a bit of a distraction because it does happen frequently.
Hmm.
And then there's also something to be said about style, like word choice. In the opening paragraph, it's like the second or third sentence in the story. It says that Jake, quote, cursed the goddamn storm outside, end quote. And I'm like, goddamn. Now, like, I don't have a thing about quote unquote bad language, but it just didn't feel right. And it was really off putting right from the start. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then I don't know. There was a plot hole from the second to the third paragraph about how his work computer wouldn't start because of the power outage due to the storm. But then in the very next paragraph, like the very next sentence, he starts typing on his Mac. And it's like, all right, well, how do you do that if the power's out? And then just as importantly, how is his supervisor that stupid, knowing that he can't complete the assignment, but telling him to do it anyway? You know what I mean?
Have you never had a boss like that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's just the difference. in like personal experience?
I have definitely had people I reported to who expected things of me that I had no way of accomplishing in a time span where I could not realistically accomplish it. And they knew this and they still wanted me to do it. And so I tried. And when I didn't do it, I told them, I was like, yeah, I need another day. So this boss was probably not so much being an idiot as he was pushing to see how much of a deadline he could get this guy in under, how far he can push him.
Yeah, that's really kind of an assholey
It really, really
thing
is.
to
But
do.
those
Like,
totally exist because he sounds like he's new to this job. This is a boss exerting power over a subordinate who
but that's not even power because it doesn't even make any sense. I would
it
just
doesn't
say like
matter if he finishes the story or not. He's just wanting to see if he would.
whatever the motivations are for his supervisor, right? How is he typing on his computer when he just finished saying there was a power outage? You
I
know what I
think this
mean?
is something that could have been solved with a single sentence and a slight
Probably.
change. The PC wouldn't start, and they were working on their Mac laptop.
Yeah, so if it was a laptop, then yeah, I guess he could have done that. And then he would need to, I guess, use Bluetooth or whatever, like his, use his phone as a hotspot, I guess.
Right, to mail it.
But then if there's a power outage, then is a cell tower even going to work? You know what I'm saying? So I
Um,
mean, you're you're still kind. I mean, it would
yeah,
be kind of like hit or miss, right?
I
But like,
rarely have my cell phone out at the same time as power's out during a storm. But
um,
it could be because I'm in a city, so but it sounds like he was in a city too.
I guess it depends on where you are,
But yeah, the
because
deadline he was working under, it sounded to me like he was working on against battery life rather than an actual time that it needed to be sent in.
I
That was just
recall
how
that the boss said that it had to be in 2 hours.
it's possible he might have it just said because part of it was that he said he needed the article tonight.
Mm, I don't know. I need to go back and look at it again.
Yeah,
Um,
now he had just called me with a change of plan, telling me he needed the article tonight.
so then, where did the 2 hours come from?
Um, that is what I'm looking for because I don't exactly remember, but I think it's after he starts typing and he says he has about 2 hours to get it done. And I'm thinking that's and alluding to him working on a laptop and working against the battery life of the laptop. That's how I read that anyway. So to me, that wasn't a continuity error. It was just a slight mistake.
It would be really easy to like write in like, if he were to work against the battery life, right?
Right. That would have added a
That
different
would
kind
have
of
been,
tension.
yeah, and then it would have been really easy, because then like they could have easily said, Jake didn't see how many hours and minutes that he had available, and he thought about looking through the settings and all this stuff and blah blah blah, but he wasn't really good with that kind of stuff,
Or they could have done it much more simply than that. Even
or just, yeah, just not
literally,
even said,
he was
yeah,
working with a full battery. Each time he stopped to evaluate where he was versus the time he had remaining, instead, he could have been evaluating against the battery life left.
yeah, and then kind of thinking like, okay, well, it was 80% this many minutes ago and now it's 70%. Does that mean I have an hour and 20 minutes left, or maybe
Right.
would that be like an hour and 30, like, yeah.
Right. That would have been, an interesting type of tension to add, especially with the power outage because you can't just plug it in.
And then while he's thinking about all that, he has what's her name?
Zoe.
And then while he's like trying to do these like mental calculations, he has Zoe like rubbing her face on his crotch, going, "Oh, Jake, please." Yeah, I mean that would have really kicked it up a notch. But
Yeah.
it was a really good story, right? So
Yeah,
the
that didn't bother
description of
me, to
this,
be honest.
yeah. So there was like spelling and some grammar stuff, and just like leaving words in the middle of the sentence, just left over from the editing process, and then a little bit of plot hole stuff. Um, but the description of the story, that was enough for me to keep reading to the end, no matter how many grammar mistakes or whatever there might have been to distract me. You know,
Yeah, and that was
um,
what made me roll my
because
eyes.
oh, that was what made you roll your eyes. I thought
That
you were saying
and the title.
I thought you were saying that it was like the characterization of Zoe at the beginning where she was acting like kind of bratty.
No, it was the title and the tagline that made me roll
Oh, the
my eyes.
description, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I went
Uh
into it thinking
but
this
yeah.
was going to be stupid. Sorry.
No, I mean it's totally fine. You just can't really judge a good story, I guess. Just off of the title.
I mean, sometimes you can.
I'm just giving you crap because you're always talking about like reading stories based on the title,
I do.
and
It's
you
what first
and
catches
you
my
read the
interest.
title of this one and you just immediately were like, nope.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
It wasn't nope. It
but
was the
yeah,
title with the tagline that made me roll my eyes and thinking it was just it read like a
the
pun.
description was what made me say yeah. So
This is
with
how we are
with the
different.
title, I was interested, right? And then I read the description and I was like, oh hell yeah, right? Because if the description said something like Zoe wants to blow her husband Jake after a hard day at work, I'd have been like, fuck no.
Yeah, but you've
You know what I
already
mean?
established that you do not like typical relationships in stories where it's just husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. Like
Yeah,
that to
right.
you is boring. So yeah, obviously that's not going to catch your attention. Um
Yeah.
but no, for me, the title and the tagline together is what made me roll my eyes because it was like a pun with a very basic porn plot. But when I started reading the story, it was anything but either of those two things.
Right.
So yeah, it gave me the wrong impression going into it, but like I said, I'm glad I read it. And I want to go to one of the things that really both irritated me and amped up the enjoyment a little bit for me. And that is when Zoe is making it so that he cannot ignore her when she is moaning very obnoxiously to distract him. That to me was like annoying because she knows he has to finish this deadline. He's paying part of the rent, and this is how he's paying part of the rent. So she should want him to finish. But at the same time, I fully understand that need overriding reason. So it's like, yeah, that's a tough balancing act. I get where it was coming from. I both enjoyed it and disliked it at the same time. And that's hard to do, like with a single instance in a scene.
But yeah, there was so much that I did like her extreme submission to her platonic male friends.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I guess it's like kind of slutty and like from a certain perspective.
Is it though?
Submission though, you were saying earlier, just thinking about it on the surface. But then once you dive deep into it, like her description of why she liked sucking cock so much and her enthusiasm for it, right? That was what really made the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then this was so good. We haven't mentioned this yet, but how he had to placate her so he could finish his work by, like, patting her on the head and,
Uh-huh.
saying, "Yeah, good girl. Yeah, you're doing so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah." That kind of
Yeah.
stuff. That was
Half-assed and
great.
distracted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that was actually part of what I liked about it too. I actually really like that part too. Those words of praise can go a long way with submission. It seems so simple and stupid, but it works. That can be enough to, like you said, placate. It can be enough to hold off and placate and soothe that need for somebody. And that, again, that was really well written in that part. With the characterization, they stayed true to their characters. He was very much not into the domination thing, and she was very much forcing him to be. But yeah, there was just a lot about it that I really liked, and it was all to do with the way the submission was portrayed, the way it was, I need this, without her coming out and saying, "You're going to do this." Because that would have broke the submission part, but that would have been easier, like story wise, that would have been much easier to do if she had just come in and done, the dominant personality is like, "Look, my boyfriend just dumped me. I need this. You're doing this. Let's go."
Yeah. I mean, that would have been a different story, though,
Yeah,
and
very
it
much.
would have. I mean, that would have worked in its own way,
Yeah,
right? But then you would have ended up with a different character.
yeah. But like this whole submission
But
aspect is so well done in the story
yeah,
because the nuances are there in meeting her needs, getting what she wants, and still letting him finish his article that he has to do. But the way it was written, this is not a one time thing. She's seen an opening and an opportunity. And the next time he's under a deadline like that, she's going to go right back to it. Because this very much now reads like something that she is getting supreme enjoyment out of because she got him so riled up while he was in this deadline crunch.
yeah, and actually, I think one thing that Jake said at some point was that he thought that she obtained more enjoyment out of it than he did.
Yeah. And she did. Oh, she definitely did.
uh,
But what caught me with this is it's from the guy's point of view, but the depiction of submission from Zoe is like spot on to me, anyways. I know it's not the same for every single person, and submission means a lot of different things to different people. But to me, this was exactly the kind of submission that is part bratty, part powerful, part extremely needy and clingy. And it was really well depicted, especially in the point of view is from somebody who is not into domination. So that was an interesting take on it to see it portrayed in that way, which like I said, I personally really appreciated that because it's rare to see that kind of submission. It's usually one of the extremes. It's slavery submission, or it is like
the
he
dominant side of it.
yeah, it's usually one or the other. And here
Yeah.
you have this sort of blend in that she's not a dominant person or a character, but she does have this need to control. that is evident from her day to day life. And she
She
knows how
has
to
a
use it.
need to submit.
She has
Really?
both.
Yeah.
Like, she needs to control the situation in her day to day life, which is why she needs to submit at times, because that is extremely overwhelming at times to have that much pressure on you. Sometimes the submission is very much about resetting your kind of social clock so that you can go back to it and redo all the stuff you have to do. Like, sometimes that's needed to be able to go back to work. And without that, you do not have the bandwidth to do it. It would just be impossible, and it would be almost debilitating at times, and would likely lead into, depression and things like that without having that kind of release, which is something that I think a lot of people don't really necessarily understand. But it is a way to keep things in balance without getting overwhelmed, which I thought was a fascinating way to portray it.
Okay, well, I don't really have anything else to say about this. Do you?
Um, Lots, but I'm not gonna.
Oh?
Yeah, I think we're gonna end it there.
Well, hang on. What are you not saying?
There's a lot I'm not saying.
About what?
Um, about specifics
Specifics of what?
of why I like this story as much as I did.
I don't really understand.
Yeah, you don't have to. And that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you for listening to Ink and Ecstasy. And if you want to check out more of our personal works, go to inkandecstasy.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a review on $200 by Xtorch.